Just in case people don't know, I'm Ian Revel. I'm Chief Exec of Milton Keynes Community Foundation. You're very, very welcome, and thank you for coming to hear this year's Vital Signs report and outcomes. I'm going to do a little bit of introduction, tell you a little bit about the report and what it's for, and then I'm going to invite my colleagues to deliver some of the information in some of the theme areas. This is our 10th publication. I have been reminded it is our 11th year, but we've done 10 publications of Vital Signs, and so in this publication we've taken the opportunity to look back to the beginning. There they go, they're the old ones. This is the first one, back in 2013. I'll put it with the others. So Vital Signs came to the UK from Canada, where a lot of the community foundations in North America wanted to ensure that they had real data and impetus to promote philanthropy. And the whole point of our Vital Signs report is to do just that, to promote philanthropy and create an energy for a call to action to respond to the things that we are reporting. It first came to the UK in 2013, and I found out that Milton Keynes was the first place to do it. The launch event was done here in the OU all those years ago. So we thought, as a bit of a celebration for our 10th report, we'd bring it back into the centre, and literally into Centre MK. And thank you, Centre MK, for giving us the space this morning. The full report covers 12 themes, but some of them are displayed on the boards around. We do a full report every 3 years. In between the 3-year full report, we also do sort of mini reports covering 3 or 4 areas that are the biggest issues for the city. So when you are being presented with some of the data, you will hear that we will talk back 10 years ago when we first did the report and reflect to some of the changes that we're faced today. The report is not all good news. There is good news in there, and some of the data points that you'll see are quite upsetting. We've had somebody already today saying they got quite upset when they were reading one part of the report. That's okay, because the whole point is that it stimulates a response and starts a conversation, because it's the people in this room and the people beyond this room that when they see the report and they react to it, we have change in our communities. So the research isn't particularly our research. We pull research from all sorts of sources, government sources, the census, the ONS survey, crime surveys, a whole range of different data sources. What we do is we reflect that back to our communities and talk to the groups that work in these areas. And so we turn the data into real reaction. We also then use the research in the year ahead to create groups of interest so that we can respond and create new actions and new grant applications to the foundation. The aim of the report is to present all this information in an easily digestible form. It's not worth the paper it's written on if you don't take it away and do something about it. These are reports that are not to collect dust. These are reports that are to stimulate action. As I said, the one reaction I want from today is that it promotes philanthropy, that love of humanity, that it stimulates you to get involved in the foundation and to get involved with groups that we support. You'll see on the boards, on this side of the board, the orange and gold side, is some of the messages from the report. On the other side of the board, you'll see the calls to action, how you can get involved, either through corporate membership or from becoming a friend of the foundation or engaging in some of our activities through the year. So, absolutely enough of me. I would like to call the first group of colleagues to the stand, Sarah, Sam and Jake, to present the first three themes.
Yeah. Thank you, Ian. Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Sibley. I'm one of the new philanthropy managers working alongside Peter, Jake and Sam. The vital signs areas that I'm looking after are work, education and the local economy. Today, I'm going to be updating you on the vital signs findings around education, linked to the Sustainable Development Goal of quality education. And that will have a particular focus on 16 to 17-year-old cohort students in Milton Keynes. So despite the ongoing and lasting effects of COVID-19 with education, we have some good news stories for our young people. We have seen a reduction in ages 16 to 17 of those not in education, employment or training, which we often refer to as NEET. This has dropped from 5.6% in 2016 to 4.7% in 2021. So although it's not a huge difference, it is a step in the right direction. However, we still continue to track slightly above comparative towns such as Luton and Bedford. We should recognise the great work that Milton Keynes College continues to do, facilitating social mobility with its vocationally oriented qualifications, and also the recruitment of those from disadvantaged communities, which will be a contributing factor to this reduction, especially as 50% of the 16 to 18-year-olds who attend the college live within the 9 most deprived areas of Milton Keynes. We also want to highlight the good work of organisations such as the Milton Keynes Christian Foundation and their social enterprise projects such as the one at Herb Farm in Wolverton, as well as Sophia, who continue to mentor and support vulnerable young people with education and skills outside the mainstream education environment. The second positive point I want to raise is around university progression. There has been an increase in the number of the cohort progressing onto university at 45.8% in 2021. That is a growth of 8.9% since 2013, and that's also above the English average. The number of those students who progress onto university who have free school meals is also improving to 27.6%, and that is an increase of 7.2% from 2013. However, Milton Keynes is still tracking behind the average for the progression rate for the entry of those students into high tariff universities, with only 8% progressing versus the national average of 11.4%. There is still more work to be done. Between 2013 and 2019, there was a decline of 1.3% of children in Milton Keynes who gained 5 GCSEs at grade 4 and above, whereas nationally there was a 5.2% improvement. It's quite a big difference between the two there. We need to recognise this data is only till 2019 due to the way the GCSE results were awarded in the summers of 2020 and 21 due to COVID. But still a stat we need to keep an eye on. We continue to see differentials in attainment between girls and boys, as well as disadvantaged versus not disadvantaged homes. Those who are from disadvantaged families in Milton Keynes, classified as having been on free school meals at any stage during 6 years at school, are less likely to do well at school and less likely to go on to university than their peers. Financial reasons and lack of role models amongst family and friends may also be a contributing factor to this. In 2021-22, 77% of those from disadvantaged homes from Milton Keynes gained 2 or more academic A-levels at level 3 compared to 87% from not disadvantaged homes. This is an improvement from the previous year, but overall the grades still remain lower, with the average from disadvantaged homes being C- versus the average of C+. So, with all this information, our priority focus on vital thinking is how can we support the achievement of young people from more deprived backgrounds? This is going to mean us working closely with our educational partners, charities supporting young people with educational needs, and our corporate partners to really facilitate this into a more actionable plan. We will continue to run events through the year to facilitate and share ideas to help support our young people, such as our corporate members' lunches, and also supporting events such as the Believing is Seeing event, which is being held at the end of this month. So if you'd like to talk through any ideas and connect with me, please do come over. I'll be at the stand on work, education, economy over there. Happy to have a chat. So thank you very much, and I'll now hand over to Sam.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Sam Sneelis, and I look after our Stronger Communities, Equality and Diversity, and Crime and Safety vital signs. This afternoon, I'm going to be talking to you about our crime and safety vital sign, some of the key takeaways from the report, which is linked to the Sustainable Development Goal 11 titled Sustainable Cities and Communities. So, crime and the fear of crime both have psychological and physical effects on individuals. Whether people feel safe and in control of their communities can have a massive effect on the health and well-being of these individuals. The Vital Signs report has collated some data regarding crime in Milton Keynes, and what I'm going to do this afternoon is share some of the key statistics with you all and our focus for the coming year. So the crime rate in Milton Keynes is overall higher than the average rate across England. Crime in Milton Keynes currently stands at 97 crimes being reported per 1,000 residents. We are marginally higher than our comparators Luton and Bedford, but we do come under Northampton. That follows a general trend in which Northampton has a higher crime rate, but Luton, Bedford and Milton Keynes kind of swap between the lower rankings. It's also worth noting that in 2020-2021, Milton Keynes saw the crime rate drop as across England due to COVID-19, but as lockdown restrictions eased, the crime rate went back up. So the data we collated shows a key shift in the type of crime being reported. In 2013, the most commonly reported crime was theft, with 42 instances of theft being reported per 1,000 residents. That's reduced from 42 down to 26 instances in 2022. Unfortunately, though, it's not great news because it means the top spot has been taken by a much more severe crime. The crime severity in Milton Keynes has increased since 2013. It was 8.2. In 2022, it was 14.8. This crime severity score is calculated using kind of a scoring system the government have created and takes into account the length of custody, community orders, and the value of fines. Our score of 14.8 is also slightly higher than the average in the South East, which is 12.9. The increased severity of crime is further reflected in the change of category. So as I said, in 2013, the most commonly reported crime was theft. In 2022, that has now changed to violence against the person, which has risen from a score of 12 crimes being reported per 1,000 all the way up to 39 crimes being reported per 1,000 in 10 years. So this category shows a notable increase in the prevalence of domestic violence in Milton Keynes. This is evidenced by data from MK Act, a domestic abuse charity based in Milton Keynes, who have seen the demand for their services more than double in the past 6 years. The data from MK Act suggests the increase in violent crimes is in fact even higher than those being reported. But it's worth mentioning this is often the case with domestic violence, as they can often be underreported. Not only does this increase in crime reflect the increased instances of domestic violence, but the Safer MK strategy published last year highlights another growing area of concern with an increase of the reports of hate crimes in Milton Keynes, specifically offences relating to racial, disableist and homophobic indicators. They've all seen an increase over the past 2 years. This increase is further reinforced by data collected nationally, which shows the prevalence of crime perpetrated against LGBTQ+ community, with a staggering 1 in 5 young people who identify as a member of the LGBTQ+ community experiencing a hate crime. These statistics bring us on to our vital thinking. How can we, as an organisation, encourage the development of safe spaces for young people, particularly those within the LGBTQ+ community? Now, the MK Community Foundation is already supporting some incredible projects, and in the past has supported some fabulous projects that are tackling some of the problems highlighted through the report. But the solution to our vital thinking requires a much more complex approach. It will need collaboration of both the voluntary and statutory sectors. We need to engage with the existing community groups and organisations working with young people in Milton Keynes, and we also need to connect with the young people identified in the Vital Signs report. We then need to create a clear idea of what safe spaces should look like in Milton Keynes. The Community Foundation are then able to use our connections, our expertise, to provide advice, training and resources, and of course provide funding to these projects through our grant schemes, to ensure these intersectional safe spaces for young people are created and sustainable for the future. I'll be at the end as well after by the crime and safety stands. If anyone has any ideas or questions, by all means stop by. But now I'm going to pass you over to my colleague, Jake.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jake, and today I'm going to be talking about the vital sign area of environment, which is linked to the Sustainable Development Goal of sustainable cities and communities. The theme of environment encompasses the natural and built environment, including its design and architecture, green spaces and waterways. It also covers MK's commitment to becoming carbon neutral, how we dispose of our domestic waste, and the environmental impact of how we choose to travel. As we all know, the worldwide issues of climate change, rising greenhouse gases and plastic pollution are just a handful of the environmental issues we all face as a society. And as a foundation, we have a role to play in this. It's now more important than ever for MK as a community to consider its individual responsibility to make positive changes, and as a foundation, we have a role to play in this. So what does all this mean from a local perspective? Milton Keynes Council has stated its overarching aspiration to make MK the world's greenest city and to be carbon neutral by 2030. MK as a city is well known for the integration of green spaces and water into its design, and this is demonstrated by the fact that over 60% of MK neighbourhoods are rated in the top 2 categories in England in terms of their access to green spaces, and this is one of the best rankings in the country. Quality green spaces are further demonstrated by the Parks Trust, who in 2022, for the 6th consecutive year, won a Green Flag Award for the networks of parks that they manage. And this is an international quality mark for parks and green spaces. However, due to its low density layout, MK has a comparatively high level of greenhouse gas emissions from transport and domestic sources. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this in a minute. So we're now going to have a look at some key stats from this year's report. So we're going to start with something that MK is doing well, and MK had 53.8% household waste recycling rate in 2021, which is above the England average of 42%. This is a small improvement of 1.2% between 2013 and 2022, and so there is still work to be done to reach the target of a 70% recycling rate by 2025 set by MK Council. As I touched on briefly before, 71% of greenhouse emissions in MK come from transport and domestic sources, and 41% of this 71% are from transport alone, the single largest activity which is contributing to emissions. And this is above the England average of 36%. This is mainly due to the decrease in use of public transport over the last 10 years and the fact that cars are our favourite way to travel around the city currently. So only 4% of employers in MK have committed to becoming net zero by 2030. And this is a particularly concerning statistic, especially considering the Council's aim to become carbon neutral by 2030, as there is a huge amount of work to do in this particular area. It's clear that climate change is an issue that local people care about. A survey by MK Community Action of residents and groups in 2019 found that the majority are concerned about climate change. They wanted to take action, but faced barriers, particularly in relation to the use of public transport, and there was also concern expressed about the vulnerable communities being most affected by climate change. So what community action is already taking place? MK Community Trees, 2 Mile Ash Environmental Group and the Parks Trust are just a few of the organisations already doing great work in this area. And there are many, many more. Milton Keynes is part of the Transition Town movement, a national network of community organisations promoting local action for low carbon living. In terms of electric vehicles, there are 133 electric charging points per 100,000 of the population, and this is the highest density of anywhere in the UK. With the phasing out of petrol and diesel cars in the near future, MK is setting the pace in this particular area. A programme to pilot the application of emerging technologies to help MK become carbon neutral by 2030 is being sponsored by MK Council. Projects funded will include sustainable mobility, renewable energy and air quality, among others. So what is the vital thinking that has come out of this year's report in relation to environment? The vital thinking is about how we raise awareness of the issues around climate change to encourage all citizens to contribute to MK Council's aim to become carbon neutral by 2030. Environment is an area that, as a foundation, we want to focus on more. We want to be talking to organisations who are running environmental projects and build connections with business networks to discuss these issues. We want to consider our own environmental impact when awarding our grants and look at boosting funding opportunities for organisations looking to run sustainable environmental initiatives that will benefit the community that we all live in. I thank you for listening to my presentation, and I will now hand you back to Ian for the first Q&A session.
There's a lot of information there, isn't there, that's coming out. So we will have some time at the end to talk to the staff team. However, there should be a second row remark. Oh, right, we've got it over there. So a couple of questions. Anybody like to ask a question to the team on crime? We've got Gal.
Is there any data to inform us about the link between hate crime among young people and the closure of youth facilities, youth centres and youth clubs?
Within the Vital Signs report, I don't think there's any specific data, but there's a lot of feedback from the young people of Milton Keynes. And there was a Health Watch survey in 2019, which they were kind of questioned, and safety was a concern for a lot of young people. And the response to that was that they were requesting more youth clubs and safe spaces for them to congregate. So there is, I believe, a correlation, but there's no specific data, I think, in the report to support it.
And of course, what we, as a result of this, we will be doing another vital thinking event in this area. And of course, the reaction we want today is for people to do exactly that sort of thing, to respond and perhaps develop these new spaces. I missed education. Does anybody have a question around education? There's quite a lot of numbers that came out there.
It wasn't about education, but it's just a clarification point about youth centres. There was some research by a parliamentary group on crime, which made the link between youth centres and crime amongst young people. So that's where that data came from, and that's in the long version of the report.
And the reason I didn't, by the way, this is our researcher, our lead researcher. I was going to thank her at the end. So if there's anybody that knows the answer to the questions, I should have really had you on the stage. Never mind. Any question about education?
Yes, yeah. To Sarah, you mentioned a difference in the data between boys and girls, but you didn't go into detail. Could you give us some?
Can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there is still, it's been quite a consistent pattern over many years, that difference between girls and boys' attainment. Yeah, I mean, I think that's just something which is just going to be a common trend. We're just going to have to try and see what we can do to boost that through the schools. So,
can you remind us of the trend?
Not offhand. I'd have to come back and pick it up with you maybe later. I've got the stats here, but I can talk to you at the end if that's all right.
And of course, what happens is that you'll be given a copy of the this summary report, although it's quite big this time. We also launch on Monday the long report, which goes into all the detail. We're also going to be, I was going to mention this at the end, we'll also be opening a website for each, and there'll be a page for each of the themes. So you'll be able to go into there, and in there will be the data sources that we've used. So you'll be able to get right into the nitty-gritty. Any question on environment? Jake's question. We can't let Jake not have a question. Are you going to get out your cars? I think that was the message that came through there, loud and clear. Okay, we're going to move on to the next three themes. Thank you very much, colleagues. So Peter, Ranjit and June are now about to talk about health, well-being, diversity, poverty and disadvantage. Peter.
Afternoon, everyone. My name is Peter Bakari. Thank you. And I am looking at the health and well-being vital sign. Time and health are two precious assets that we don't recognize or appreciate until they've been depleted. Health and well-being encompasses both physical and mental health, and this is impacted by factors including lifestyle, social and community networks, living and working conditions. So let's take care of your body. It's the only place you have to live, and we want to take care of Milton Keynes. We all have memories of keeping active and what it meant to us as being young, and many of us probably got the opportunities within our communities to take part in physical activity. Data from local public health experts have commented that regular physical activity can help children and young people improve their fitness, reduce symptoms of anxiety and depression, leading to happier mental well-being. I first got into sports as a child in East London when a group of monks from New York set up a basketball court in my neighborhood and encouraged us all to take part and play. As well as teaching us to play basketball, they gave out food donations to the families like mine who needed it. This is much like the community groups in Milton Keynes that work day in and out to make a difference. Our vital signs report have found that 40% of children from the most deprived neighborhoods in Milton Keynes are undertaking less than 30 minutes of exercise per day. This means more children are being inactive than a national average of 30%. Giving a voice to the community and listening to youth can make a change. MK Movers, a network and collaboration of physical activity providers in Milton Keynes, from their survey of 200 young people in 2022, found that affordability, knowledge of what's available, as well as anxiety and trying something new were some of the barriers to keeping physically active. Nationally, around 25% of women aged 17 to 22 years old have a mental health disorder. The locally based mental health support charity Arthur Ellis reports they've seen a large growth in demand for their services and now receives 1,200 referrals per year in Milton Keynes. YIS, another mental health support service, found the impact of COVID-19 has increased social isolation. To improve mental health of the young people, there was a call out for more activities and events, more safe places to meet, and more education around health and well-being. But this is all around the physical and mental health of the young. If you'll think back to your 7th birthdays, how much you learnt and played during those early years. What if you never got to live the last 7 years of your life? We tend to think being young is healthy, but what about health as we age? In Milton Keynes, men living in the 20 most deprived neighborhoods are likely to live 7.6 years fewer. And women in the 20 most deprived neighborhoods are likely to live 5.6 years fewer. Research from HealthWatch Milton Keynes have found that lower income groups had fewer opportunities to healthy lives, experienced transport difficulties, accessing mental health services, getting medical appointments, and access to healthy food and dental care. When asked to assess the aspects of their own health and well-being in 2013 to 2021, a 10-year span, older elders of Milton Keynes felt an increase in anxiety, decreases in life satisfaction, that life was worthwhile, and even decreases in happiness. Ratings on these factors have increased in 2019 to 20, and this indicates the negative impact of COVID-19. So what are the things that we can do as a community about it? Have a moment to think. How can we facilitate well-being as a community, educate people about the importance of physical health and their mental health? How can we empower the community to influence services provided by local health authority to best meet our needs? It takes a village to raise a child, and we want to make sure there's a city of young people and elders who can pave the way. How can we build a system of health opportunities from the bottom up in partnership with diverse groups, from grassroots members and national organizations? Take care of your body. It's the only place we have to live. And let's continue to take care of Milton Keynes, the place we live. Thank you. I'm now going to hand over to Ranjit to talk about diversity.
I'm going to talk to you about diversity, and that's linked to the Sustainable Development Goals of reduced inequalities. Diversity was integral to the vision of Milton Keynes when it was first founded. Among the aspirations for Milton Keynes was that all should have the freedom of choice, everyone should be welcomed, and there should be jobs for all. MK Community Foundation, we are extremely proud of the fact that our city is becoming a vibrant and diverse place and to live and work. We strive to support all sections of our community and distribute funding in an inclusive and equitable way. According to the 2021 census, the population in Milton Keynes has risen to 287,060 people. That's an 11.9% growth since 2013. MK City Council predict that by 2050, the population is estimated to be over 400,000. The city still has a young age profile compared with the average in England. However, as the original residents remain and older people move into the city, the proportion in older age groups is growing more rapidly than younger. The growth in older population at 43% is over double the rate of England. as it stands at the moment. As the city has grown, the makeup of the population has changed also. In 2013, 73% of the population were from white British backgrounds. And in 2021, it was 66%. So the ethnicity makeup of Milton Keynes at the moment is 34%, up from 26% 10 years ago. The diverse nature of Milton Keynes' population is particularly reflected in our schools, where in 2021, 52% of children are from ethnically diverse backgrounds, up from 42% in 2015 and 16. Their families have links to increasing number of cultural, linguistic, and national heritages, and over 160 different languages are spoken in our schools. As an example, the Community Foundation has funded a number of different types of events that support our ethnically diverse communities. For example, in 2019, we supported India Day, the first of its kind for Milton Keynes, which attracted over 6,000 people to Campbell Park. Again, in Campbell Park, the African Diaspora Day has been running events every year, and that was launched in 2017. And the Great Get-Together Iftar was launched in 2018, all examples of great diversity within our city. A 2017 survey of those who self-identify as LGBTQ+ found that younger people and those living in London and South East, which also includes Milton Keynes, are more likely to be identified as LGBTQ+. Again, another example of our funding has been with MK Pride. We've got a 3-year partnership with MK Pride, who run a festival every year in Campbell Park, and over 16,000 people attended that last year. So we're very proud to be working with MK Pride every year. National data shows that people with disabilities are over a third less likely to be employed than people without disabilities. Nationally, worklessness due to long-term ill health is at its highest since records began in 1992, and it's grown significantly since pre-pandemic. On a slightly negative point, only 10% of Milton Keynes employers actively target or advertise to attract diverse applicants. So my challenge to our corporate colleagues and businesses in Milton Keynes is, what are you going to do to make sure that you have a vibrant, diverse workforce in your organisations? And my final challenge to you all is, what are you willing to do to learn about one of the protected diversity characteristics which enrich our city? Thank you for listening. I'll now hand you over to June.
Good afternoon. I'm June Oldroyd and I'm one of the philanthropy directors. I'm going to talk to you about the vital signs area of disadvantage and poverty, which links with the Sustainable Development Goal, no poverty. It's quite difficult to provide a definitive measure of poverty, as different organisations use different definitions, and the metric used to measure poverty has changed over the years. The data used in this report is based on the definition by the End Child Poverty Coalition. It measures households with incomes net of household housing costs that are below 60% of the midpoint. So this method considers the relative high cost of housing in Milton Keynes. But poverty is basically when a person's resources are well below those needed to cover their minimum needs. It could mean falling into debt, reduced opportunities, and this creates pressure that undermines physical and mental health. What this also shows is the intersectionality of our vital signs areas. My colleagues have already talked to you about how poverty affects other vital sign areas. Supporting projects that help to alleviate poverty is one of the key priorities for the Foundation. And for this reason, all our corporate membership subscriptions go directly into our Child Poverty Fund. The high cost of housing, insecure and low-paid work jobs, low levels of skills, high transport and childcare costs are all contributing to poverty rates in Milton Keynes. The sharp increase in the cost of living, including fuel and food costs, is already exacerbating the problems being faced by low-income households. 12% of neighbourhoods in Milton Keynes are in the 20% most deprived neighbourhoods in England, based on the government's measures of deprivation. Until COVID-19 pandemic, Milton Keynes Food Bank provided up to 6 food parcels, which was sufficient to cover crisis support for 90% of recipients, with only 10% requiring additional support. By 2021, this had increased to 25 recipients, leading to the introduction of top-up shops. MK Food Bank has seen an increase of 110% since 2019. A significant proportion of users are single men, including pensioners on limited incomes, those not working or in low-wage jobs, long-term sick, or with a financial crisis and no savings to draw upon. So 2 out of every 100 households in Milton Keynes has had to use the food bank services. When MK Money Lifeline started delivering services 10 years ago, they supported most people to develop plans to pay off their debts. In 2022, many of their clients seek to gain a debt relief order, as they have no likelihood of paying their creditors. Many of their clients are of working age, but they're not able to work full-time, and a third have children. The government provides additional nursery care for low-income households with children aged 3 to 4, which works out at around 22 hours a week, meaning working full-time can be difficult, particularly if you have no local support network. In 2021, over 18,000 children in Milton Keynes were living in poverty. That's nearly 30%, or 1 in 3. The UK average is 27%. Figures show that the percentage of children living in poverty since 2013 has actually gone down by 0.5%, and in fact across the UK as a whole. But this is related to the additional support that was provided during COVID-19 pandemic by the £20 uplift to the universal credit, which has since ceased and so is therefore likely to be temporary. Housing costs have increased. In 2013, the ratio of average annual salary to average house price was 6.6. In 2021, the figure has risen by 3.3, with the salary to house price now being 9.8. That is higher than both Luton and Bedford, and the increase in house prices has a knock-on effect for the cost of private rental properties. There are currently over 2,000 families on MK City Council's housing waiting list. So vital thinking. Poverty and disadvantage is an area where previous vital thinking event shows just how vital signs can be used effectively. In 2020, we brought together organisations that were distributing food during lockdown, with the aim to avoid duplication and highlight gaps in service. This group has gone on to form the Child Poverty Partnership, whose overriding aim is to challenge the causes of poverty, alleviate the effects of poverty, and working together for the eradication of child poverty in Milton Keynes. This is a great example of how, by working together, we can actually make a difference to our community. I'll now hand back to Ian.
So, another opportunity for a few questions. we started off with health and well-being. Has anybody got a question for Peter?
Thank you, Peter. That was really, really interesting. I just wanted to ask you, when you were saying about the amount of children who don't do enough physical activity during the day and about the lack of activities for them as a whole, I have reliably been told that the cadets within Milton Keynes have got an increase in volunteers. And it makes me think that actually maybe this is an avenue that we could be exploring more in terms of engagement with children, because you could be doing it right across Milton Keynes without just, sticking to key areas. It could be, we've just had one started up in Conagra, for example. So this could be an avenue, I think. What would you say about that?
I'll say first is one of the things we spoke about with the vital thinking was building up a system of grassroots members as well as organizations. So that's perfect. And then secondly, it's about the youth. They spoke about the knowledge of knowing that this is available. So once it is, getting that message out to them, and they may try it out and then it can be rolled out. So that's really positive.
Peter, just a question about accessibility. To what extent are young people prevented from accessing sporting opportunities because of transport problems?
I guess it's all about where does the activity take place. Some of the facilities are in neighborhoods where they're a lot more affluent than the deprived neighborhoods. So it's about getting the activities into those neighborhoods that they can actually just access, as well as other children and youth can as well. No problem.
Okay, any questions around diversity? And we see the change in diversity in the city as a massive positive for the city, and but there are pockets of deprivation that's linked to the intersectionality around diversity. And remember Ranjit's challenge to employers about making sure that we're actively, and that number that somebody said earlier about the population of children in our schools, 52% from ethnic minority backgrounds. So you can see what's happening in Milton Keynes. So it's time to wake up, I'm guessing, when it comes to making sure we've got employment, actively trying to recruit people from these areas. Any questions rather than me talking on diversity? No, it's always a tricky one. How about partnership? How about poverty and disadvantage? Has that stimulated a thought from anyone?
Hi, I'm Tracy McKillen from the Homelessness Partnership. I think rather than a question, Ian, if I may, it's more an observation that listening to the first segment and the data that's coming out from that, and I think Jean's reference to the intersectionality of the data that the Foundation has put together, there's a stark message, I think, to us all, that if I look at homelessness in Milton Keynes, every single one of the topics that have come to the table today are a driver of homelessness in Milton Keynes. And I'm sure that all of the other areas, it will be the same. I think particularly things like crime, for example, the domestic violence figures, which we know from other data is one of the big drivers, disabled people, people with long-term health conditions. So I was speaking to Peter earlier about building the well-being aspect into our homeless population as well. So it's more an observation. I think also the diversity about the employment and driving those as well. So I think across the raft. And I suppose my ask is, how do we look at connecting across the various sectors that are working perhaps with a spotlight on these areas? How can the Foundation facilitate us as a partnership and others to come together on these key issues? Because I'm sure there's more partnership working that we all can be doing. But so an observation rather than a particular question, other than how can we come together to look at more?
No, there was a question. June, how can we help? How can we be involved?
So that is exactly what our vital thinking events are for. So the vital thinking is about us to try and deep dive into some of these subjects, but bring all the parties to the table. So I'm really glad that you highlighted that, because, you know, if people are interested in being involved in our vital thinking, then we definitely want to know. And what we will do is, on the website, we will keep a rolling programme of vital thinking events and the subjects that they cover, so that you are aware. Because as I said as I finished, we can only do this if we work together. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take a final question.
Hi, Mark Ormerod from LEAP. My question is about the presentations we've seen today are very much thematic. They're very much themed around particular social, economic and societal issues, basically. How are you tackling an approach to a place-based resolution to some of these, a solution? Because often these things sort of coalesce in a particular area, in a particular locality, or a ward in Milton Keynes. Is there a way, perhaps through the discussions you mentioned, June, that they can be place-based in those localities where these themes are brought together, and look at how, through a whole system approach, we can tackle those?
Yeah. Do you want to have a?
Yeah, absolutely. And in actual fact, and quite often, the funding that we do is place-based. Well, it is, because we're Milton Keynes, and so therefore, by its nature, it's place-based. But to make it actually more local, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we're going to move on to the conversation piece in just a few moments. But before we do that, I would just like to say a few thank yous. Catherine asked a question earlier. A big thank you to Catherine Ball, our lead researcher. She was doing a lot of the desktop analysis and a lot of the raking through all the reports and finding all that information which is presented in today. Thank you ever so much, Catherine. You've done an excellent job. Also, I'd like to thank Events Managed, who are making everything work today. It's brilliant. Nothing's not worked, so that's very good. And Yellow Yo-Yo have helped put today together and helped us with some of the boards and design and all the concept stuff. I saw Brian at the back there. Thank you, Yellow Yo-Yo. Well, I'm going to make your hands sore now. Also, thank you, Red Bull, who sponsored the lunch and this morning's briefing breakfast. Thank you, Red Bull. I've already mentioned them, but again would like to say a great thanks to Centre MK, who provided the space today. And, you know, every year they've given us a space to do our community raffle. Thank you very much, Centre MK. And finally, for the thanks, I'd like to thank June Oldroyd, who's really been our editor-in-chief, who has brought everything together, has read this report so many times. I hear she wakes up screaming in the night, vital signs. If you find a typo in it, we don't want to know. But also to thank June and the whole philanthropy team for the incredible amount of work they've done bringing this report together. And to Claire and our comms team, thank you very much for all your work. Okay, now what? We're going to give you a copy of this year's report. So you're going to get this, and the first thing you're going to do is all go quiet and start reading bits and pieces of it. You don't need to do that right now, although you will be tempted to do it. What we want you to do is to have a conversation with people. As I said earlier, this is not worth anything if it's not used. We need you to share your copy. We need you to share it with your family, with your friends, and with your colleagues. We need you to ask your employers, what are they doing to contribute to overcoming some of these issues that are highlighted in the report? We need to talk about how you engage in some of these issues, and the Foundation stands ready to enable that to happen. through our vital thinking events, and through linking you with the many groups that we support. Philanthropy is about giving money to organisations, but it's also about getting involved and giving your time. And so we very much are about promoting philanthropy in its broadest sense. So you've got to get engaged. You've got to turn this into action. You've got to make change happen, because I think the city is at that space where it's growing. We've got to get these things right now if we are going to achieve what was intended for this place. And it's in our hands. We can make the difference. We can make the change happen. We can deliver the impact that can turn some of the issues in here, I've gone completely off script, turn the issues off into positive action, to positive change. So, now, the long report will be on the website, I think, on Monday. So read this report over the weekend, and then go onto the website and download the long report. Make sure everybody in your office goes and downloads the report and sees it. You can put it on your phone and you can show it to people. I'm going to ask my colleagues to go and stand in front of one of the, yeah, I've remembered that, to stand in one of the signs so you can go and talk to them about it. Also, you'll see, we had the agenda on one side. If you turn it over, there is a little call for action, an engagement card. You have a pen on your chair, so nobody can get away without filling this in, please. And when you do so, there's a box at the back that you can pop them in. This enables us to call you together to respond to the issues that we have just talked about. So, please, please speak to the foundation, speak to the team, and let us work together to continue to deliver positive change for all our communities in Milton Keynes. Thank you.